Hey friends, it's Rachelle with Georgia CASA, and today we're going to talk about press releases. I know they can be intimidating, but they are a very powerful tool to get your mission and your organization out to the community. So we're going to talk about what are the key components of a press release and a media advisory, how they're different and when to send them, who to send them to, what day of the week, what time, all of that and more we're going to go over. So I hope you're ready. We're going to look at this press release here, and this is one that I helped draft for Dougherty County CASA about their upcoming volunteer training, and just update the dates and make it tailored to your organization. So the first thing you want to do is always include a press contact. Now, the press contact doesn't necessarily mean the person on your team that's always going to be the one sending this out. A lot of times it means who they would reach out to about this topic, because what you want to do is remove the number of people they have to go through to get to the person that has the answers for them, right? So if this is going to be a fundraiser, put that person over the event as long as they're cleared to do interviews within your organization. And then you want to include the date. So this would also be the day and the month and the year and all of that. And then for the headline, right, the title of your press release, you want to start with the name of your program. So for us, it would be Georgia CASA announces, Georgia CASA launches, whatever it might be. You want to have that first because you want that to be the thing that isn't lost, isn't buried, is top of mind in this press release. And then you want to have an action verb. So it's going to be announces, launches, hosts, something like that, right? And then whatever it is. So host event, hosts training, announces new board members, right? These are all ideas of times when it'd be appropriate to send out a press release. So typically you start with the name of the city or the town. And this is especially true if your CASA program is over many counties. Let's say you serve 10 counties and your training is taking place in one county. You want to list this county that your training is taking place in, because that's the where of the whole thing. Where is this happening? And then you want to start again with the name of your organization. Think of a press release as an upside down pyramid. So you're going to start a little more broad and you slowly become more narrow as the press release goes along. So you want to make sure in this opening sentence that you are giving that big overview of what this is about. So this includes, you'll see, CASA, a nonprofit dedicated to advocating for the best interests of children in foster care. So you're getting that in there right away. That what is CASA, right? You're putting that in there right away. And then the general view of your announcing a volunteer training. So that raises a bunch of questions. What does a volunteer do? What is this training all about? What is the CASA volunteer? What does that mean, right? So you're going to initially just get that big question answered of what the volunteers do, what the training is about, and how their role is relevant to the situation. Okay, so you're getting all of that in there right away. So the next paragraph, it kind of gets a little, that was the big picture of what is CASA, what is training, and then you're going to get a little more specific to your community. You want to talk about why this matters for your community. So here we put the number of kids that were in foster care in this area and in Georgia. You're going to put how many volunteers served. And this isn't for every single one, but for this type of press release, it fit really well for this structure. If it were an event, you still want to keep that CASA mission woven throughout the entire thing, throughout everything you're sharing. And then I like to include a quote in every single press release. And this is because I like to think of this press release as everything a journalist would need. So if they received this, they could technically, they don't have to reach out to you, right? They have everything they need. They have a quote, they have all the details, they have the why, they have the need in your community. They understand everything that they need to write this story or to do the story piece, even without an interview or without contacting you further. So that's why I always like to throw in a quote. Now, your quote can be someone on your team, on your staff. It could be your director. It could also be a current volunteer. It could be a current board member. So you can certainly think outside of the box. I try to get a different person every time I do one of these, and depending on what the topic is or what the theme of the press release is. Now, for the quote, I've got some best practices here for you. So What not to do is just call someone up and say, hey, can I get 5 sentences from you about why this CASA training helps set you up to be a successful volunteer? That's going to be tricky because they've got a full life, they've got other things going on, and maybe that's a little intimidating to them. So what I do is I actually draft the quote for them. I'll draft, 4 or 5 sentences, and then I'll share it with them and say, hey, like, thank you so much for agreeing to offer a quote for this press release. I've drafted a sample quote. Feel free to tweak it or change it completely, totally up to you. We just want to make sure it's in your voice and that you're okay with it. So then I send them the quote and give them a chance to tweak it and change it how they want. And that is so much more successful. You will get it in a much timelier manner than if you just kind of open-endedly ask them for a quote, right? And then at the end, just reiterating the details, really getting super specific, that point in the bottom of the pyramid of when, where, the date, the location, and including that contact person again, that email or that phone number. You want to make sure that's included there. This is usually a little about thing at the footer of every press release, and this almost always stays the same. You might update it if there's an update on the year or an update on, like for us, we just went from 158 to 159, right? So we update it in that way, but other than that, it's pretty static and stays the same almost all the time. So this is a press release we're working on announcing our new and returning board members for the year. So it's another great example of a good occasion to send out a press release. So a press release is something you want to send out usually a month ahead of time. So a media advisory is kind of like that poke that comes maybe 3 to 5 days before the actual thing that's like, hey, remember that press release I sent out? I'm just reminding you of this thing that's coming up. And even if they already covered you, sometimes they'll cover it again. It's happened, right? So you want to make sure you get this out there again. It doesn't work for everything. For instance, the one I just showed you about the board announcement, there's no timeline attached to that, so we wouldn't necessarily send out a media advisory. But for a training or for an event, you would definitely want to send out a media advisory. So the media advisory, I love these because they're so much simpler. They're so concise. You really can pull everything you wrote for the press release and use it for the media advisory. So the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. The why is going to be the most robust, but even still, it's really concise still, and it's no more than 5 sentences. And then this potential interviews, this is very much optional. This is not, most of the time I actually do not include this, but depending on what it is and how likely I think a story will be, you can include some potential interviews, and you can include different, anywhere from 1 to 4 to 5 people that have a different relationship to the organization. And you want to make sure for all of them, this is a little incomplete here, you want to include their contact. So directly include their contact. And this is all under the assumption that you're comfortable with that person doing an interview and representing your organization. So then, and at the end, you would have that summary I just showed you from the other one. You would include that on the footer at the end as well, that about Georgia CASA, or that about whatever CASA program your name is there. So that is the overview of the content of a press release and a media advisory. Now, I just want to share, don't be discouraged if you send this out and it doesn't get picked up right away. That's pretty common. It's not personal. You never know what other stories they have going on. You never know what they might have just done a story on like yesterday that's sort of similar. So they might not pick it up when you send it out. But the more you send them, the more likely eventually something will get picked up. So even if you just send 1 a month, that's 12 a year. Likely like 2 or 3 of those would get picked up, and that's 2 or 3 more than might have otherwise been shared. Okay, so you really want to make sure you're incorporating this into your plan. And this is free, right? It's free to send out. It's free to get covered. It doesn't cost you anything except time. And once you get a few press releases out there, it'll become so much easier, and then you'll learn what you can adapt and pull, and it'll be quicker to even write along the way. So a couple other things I want to talk about before we go is building out your press contact list. So most news and media outlets will have a generic email that's for press releases. So it'll be like info@whatevermedia.com, or they'll have that general email that's for press releases. So it'll be on their website. So you need to look Google and look around for your local news outlets and find that email and pull it, and that's where you're going to start. You also want to include local entities that are really involved in a key part of your community. So you want to include your Chamber of Commerce. You want to include your community foundations, your Rotary clubs. Those groups, you want to make sure they're on your list too. And definitely 100% include me. I want to see your press release. But yeah, keep adding to that list all the time. It starts small, and that's okay. You start with the things you can find easily online, the low-hanging fruit, the people you know already support you and are interested in you. And then as you go along, when individual reporters respond, you're going to add them to your list, right? Now, just a note here, it's a very transient world, the media world. So reporters come and go and they move between different groups all the time. So you always want to keep that general outlet contact on there no matter what. You don't want to get rid of that because that will stay the same even as reporters move around. But again, as you do it, your media list will grow. So one more note about when you're sending your press release, how to send it. So what I usually do is I copy the content, all of the text into the body of the email. And then I attach the actual document as a PDF to that same email. And all of my press contacts, no matter who they are, any contacts I'm sending it to, I always blind carbon copy. I BCC them. And here's why. It just takes one person to respond all to make everybody hate you. So it's really important that you blind carbon copy and that you attach the press release as a PDF. And also, I just like to include it in the body just in case. It makes it a little easier. So that is the best practice that I've used when the actual sending of the press release. And as far as timing, what you don't want to do is send one out on a Friday afternoon at 4:30 when you're walking out the door, because I can't even tell you how often I've sent out a press release and they call me that day and want an interview right then. So that happens. It does happen. So be prepared. So I like to send them out before 10 a.m. because often they have meetings in the morning and they determine what stories they're going to cover for that day. So if I can, I'll even send it out earlier than that, like 8 a.m. or something like that. Like I'll plan it the day before, schedule it out to go out in the morning so they can take it with them to their daily meeting. They can talk about it and decide if they want to cover it. They'll probably call you if they decide they want to do it by 10 o'clock and then try to get you in before 2 or 3 because they have to edit it and get it ready to be aired that night. Usually it's really quick like that. So you're going to get a call and they're going to want to cover it. So you want to send it on a day that you know you have that space. And even if they don't call, that's fine, right? But you want to have that space in your schedule to do that interview. And you also want to make sure you send it out in the morning. Like I said, I usually do like a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I'm trying to make sure that if they see it on Tuesday, that gives them a couple of days. If they can't do it that day, maybe they can call me and schedule it for Thursday or something. And another great thing about sending out press releases is that you become the expert on that topic that they connect you with, right? So they're going to be associating you with child welfare in your community. So when there's a story that they're doing that may not necessarily be about CASA, but something related to child welfare, they will call you and they'll say, hey, we're doing this story on XYZ and it's related to child welfare. Can we interview you on how CASA feels about this? And maybe you'll not want to do the interview, and that's okay. You can say no, but maybe you will. And that is another way to continue to build your credibility and get your voice out there and your mission, your organization out there in your community more. So it's another great benefit to being in their inbox, even if they're not covering you for that particular story, but being in their inbox really helps build that credibility and that familiarity and helps you build those press relationships that you need to be building. So when you do those interviews, keep their card, hold on to it, send them a little thank you note after the story airs, right? So work on that personal relationship. So when there is something really, really important to you, you can call them and say, hey, I'm sending out a press release. I just want to make sure you see it, and those relationships will become stronger over time. Okay, there's my little soapbox about the power of a press release, and I'm so excited that you're going to be adding me to your list and including me when you send these out because I want to see them, and I'm so excited for you and for the interviews in your future. Good luck, and I will be seeing you.